Everyone, welcome to Chemistry 102, Spring 2021. I'm Dr. Mills, your instructor. I don't really mind if you call me Dr. Mills, Mr. Mills, Professor Mills. Any of those is okay. All right, so what we're going to do, as we normally do, we'll talk you through the syllabus, but as well as that, I've got a little checklist here for you, okay? So in this video, what we're going to do, so talk about things you've got to get squared away before you even start to take the class, okay? So there's some very important things you have to take care of to be successful online, okay? Particularly in a science class like this, okay? So I'm going to talk you through just briefly the Read It First post from Canvas. Hopefully you've already seen that, okay? But I'm going to kind of go through the important points in that in a moment, okay? Then we'll get on to the syllabus, which is under here, which I'll go through momentarily. And then, at the end, I'll just recap everything in terms of how the class works. Okay? So, I actually printed the, here it is. Let me just move this over a little bit. Okay. So, obviously the writing's a little small. I'm just going to read through it. This is just taken straight off a Canvas, okay? So, obviously you know how to get on the Canvas. So I'm going to just talk you through, after now 3 semesters in the bag of teaching from home, these are the take-home messages which I think will really help you out. Okay, first things first, you have to have a decent computer. It has to be a laptop or a desktop, and it must have the Google Chrome browser. Okay, now the reason for that is if you use your phone or some other browser, certain things in Pivot and the ACS Final, sometimes there's an issue transferring images. Some of those things don't work, okay? And I can only grade what you send me, okay? So make sure you can receive and send documents correctly, you can open them correctly, you can view them correctly. To do that, you need a laptop or a desktop, okay, and Chrome browser, okay? And only log on to Canvas via Chrome, okay? And also only log on to Canvas through the JJC web page, okay? If you've downloaded the app to your phone, it's, frankly, I can say this because, I don't care. It's useless, okay? The Canvas app is useless, all right? So use the program, which is accessible through, iCampus JJC website, okay? Next thing, I don't really do multiple choice tests on Canvas. I think that's frankly a waste of time. There's multiple choice tests are not good for learning science, and so I don't use them. Okay, so what I do, I actually send you the assignments I would give you in class as email attachments, all right, and then you fill them out either PDF or Word, and then send them back to me as email attachments, okay? Now, if you're really good at editing math functions in Word, do that, okay? If you're not so good at that, that's okay. My advice is to get a printer/scanner, and some of these are okay. They're less than $100, which is 1/3 the price of the textbook. Okay, get yourself a printer scanner or access to one, and just manually write on the printouts and then just scan them back as PDFs, okay? So it's just like you're completing a class assignment, but you're just scanning your final answers and sending them back, all right? More about that as we talk about it, but bottom line is I suggest a used textbook, any version, $20, right? Printer scanner, $120. Those two things together are less than the cost of the textbook new, okay? So it's kind of controversial, but I'm saying don't buy a new textbook. Buy a printer, scanner, and an old textbook, okay, for about the same price. All right. If you really want to do well in this class, you're going to fill out PDFs manually. Okay. We'll talk more when we get into testing about how you complete and return assignments, but simply said, a handwritten and then scanned PDF is the way to go. All right. Next thing, I have a copy lurking around here somewhere. Oh, somewhere's over here. Okay. So this is the ACS General Chemistry Exam Guide. Your final will be an ACS Final, okay? If you just coming from 101 with me or somebody else, you've already taken the ACS Chemistry 101 Final, and if you bought that book, it was a great help, wasn't it? Okay. Now the thing of it is, it's the same book for Chemistry 102, it's just part 2 of General Chemistry, so same textbook, same ACS book, just different material, okay? So by that, You can get them as low as $10 used, okay? And it's super useful. It's also super useful moving forward for any kind of placement test, MCATs, PCATs, anything like that. They get all the questions for chemistry out of the ACS book, okay? So it's a great thing now and for your future, okay? Very, very strongly advise you to get that one, okay? Next thing, I sent you the complete note packet as an attachment. We'll talk, as we go through, we'll talk about how the best way to learn is online. I've tried my best to translate exactly what I do in the classroom into an online environment, but it does involve following the script, okay? So if you kind of take on board what I'm saying and do what I say, sound a bit authoritarian, if you basically follow the script, you'll do well in this class, okay? There are no shortcuts in science, and you probably know that having made it to 102, but there are no shortcuts in science. You've got to do the work, and I've tried to make the work as painless as possible in many ways by making it kind of user-friendly. Okay, now I didn't print out the Chemistry 102. This is the Chemistry 101 complete notes. I basically sent you the 102 equivalent of this. Several hundred pages of interactive notes, so you'll kind of work out the problems in that note packet as we go through, and that's how the lectures are designed. They're designed for you to follow along, pause me, solve problems. Okay, chemistry is all about problem solving. The more problems you solve, the better you are. We'll talk about that more in the syllabus. Okay, so, you know, I recommend printing that complete note packet, or you can download them one at a time from the webpage. I actually, you know, if you've got the complete note packet now as a PDF I sent you, right, or I think also a doc, you know, you can just, you know, if you want to piecemeal print that, you know, just print out a chapter or two at a time, that's fine. Right? Okay. Now, it's all run through Canvas, right? So be sure to log on to Canvas at least once per day, all right? And when you're on Canvas, check the announcement area, because that's where important announcements turn up, and then a discussion area, okay? And then the modules area, okay? So I've kind of put the same assignment in different locations, so you should have no problems finding it in one of those locations, but be sure to check all of them every time you log on, okay? Assignments a week long, okay? So I will get the assignment out by Monday each week, and the idea is you watch the appropriate video, be it for lecture or lab, and then you follow up with appropriate work, okay? So make sure for sure you watch the videos on Monday or Tuesday of each week, okay? That gives you time to do the homework or the assignment if it's a lab. And then on Thursdays I have office hour, okay? So office hours, we'll talk more about this later, but it's 9:30 a.m. onwards. Whenever you stop on Thursdays, okay? If that office hour actually starts at 9, but that's for Chemistry 101. If you do have Chemistry 101 questions, come at 9, okay, and stay for the 102. But I'll be talking about 102 stuff from 9:30 onwards. The link to that is in the first kind of days of class assignments, which is on the Canvas. Okay, so log on to Canvas, have a good look around, get familiar with the environment there, and, you know, check it every day. Last thing, and had a bit of an interesting semester last semester. Half of the students that took my Chemistry 101 failed it, and that's never ever happened before. When I say failed, I mean either withdrew, so didn't finish the course, or got an F, okay? And the folks that got Fs were because I caught them cheating, okay? So I will know, if you Google an answer, I will know if you went onto a homework help site, okay? Because I have access to all that as well. It takes me no time to look up answers to my own tests, okay? So don't do it, okay? I don't want to have that happen again. I don't want 50% failure, okay? If you're having a problem in class and you're struggling, come to an office hour. I can help you, okay? But you know, don't be tempted to Google stuff. I will know, okay? I will know. All right. Now, hopefully that all makes sense, okay? Any questions? Email me, or actually water cooler chat, right? So we'll talk more about it as we go, but there is a section at Canvas called water cooler chat, where if you have any question about the course, feel free to ask it there, okay? Instead of asking me directly personally, because if a student answers your question, they get a point of extra credit, okay? And other people may have the same question, so instead of just a one-on-one conversation with me, everybody sees it, and if it applies to them or they can help, they get what they need, which is, you know, extra credit points or the help, right? Okay, so that's kind of in a nutshell where we are. Now let's just go through the syllabus formally. So, you know, checked off the first one there. So now, I did say in that, you know, things to do list, okay, check the website. Okay, I do have a website. If I just scroll up here, obviously, you know, that is the address of the website at the bottom there. And it links directly from the syllabus area of Canvas, okay? So if you just click syllabus or about your instructor or whatever, you click on that syllabus or homepage at the site, it will go to this online syllabus, okay? Now, Chemistry 102 is obviously General Chemistry 2, right? So, continuation from 101, okay? So, it's an IAI course, meaning it transfers, Illinois Articulation Initiative. Chemistry 101, if you remember, was actually 911. We're 912, so it's like the next one in sequence. That means it transfers anywhere in the state of Illinois, which is fantastic. Okay, so, you know, if you want to transfer out to, you know, whichever school in Illinois, just tell them you got IAI 912, and they'll give you credit for General Chemistry 2. Okay. It also transfers out of state, but that, you know, that's school dependent. You'd have to talk to their registration or admissions office or whatever. But it usually does. Okay. So now these, you know, if you went to the website, these are active links, right? Okay. But I already sent you the lecture notes. Okay. The assignments is essentially the semester schedule, which is already published, but the miscellaneous information is useful. Okay, so click that, have a look there on the website, because that's got old blank exams, all right, which, you know, for later on when you want to practice for a midterm or a quiz or something, that's where you can get like a practice from. Okay, so you can go there. The answers to those miscellaneous exams are in the note packet, right? So do the notes, we'll practice those actual questions in the notes, and then, you know, you'll have an answer key, if you like, already in your notes. Then you can go and practice and just check your notes for the answers. All right, now, obviously me, if we were on campus, that's my my office number, okay? Office phone, not really relevant because I'm not there, right? However, if you want to get hold of me, text works great. You can text me on my cell phone, email me. I actually prefer email, okay? So email me. If it's a general question, I'll just refer you to the water cooler chat, okay? But if it's something, you know, personal, just, yeah, text me, okay? Don't bother phoning me because texting's better. All right, so that's my cell phone for texting. All right. Website, well, hopefully you've already taken a look at it. You can access it through the Canvas site. So, you know, these two you can go to and from pretty easy. All right. Now, office hours obviously don't apply in terms of a physical thing. I already mentioned it. Oh, 9:30 on Thursdays, and I'll stay as long as there are students, okay? But I'm not going to stay until 9:40 waiting for people to log on. If you've got a question, get there at 9:30, and I'll stay as long as there are students, okay? All right, I'm not going to sit there in front of a computer with no students, so get there, don't be late. All right. So office hours, you know, that's face-to-face, 9:30 Thursdays. Text, now we talked about textbooks already. My strong advice is to get a used textbook. Okay, and spend the change on a printed scanner. Talked about that. All right. I don't recommend the electronic textbook. Okay. I recommend a used hard copy. All right, 20 bucks. ACS guide, talked about that. Get a used one for $10. All right. That's probably the most important book in chemistry you'll ever buy. Honestly, all right. Other things, talked about the notes. I sent you a note packet already. That's okay, right? Okay. Let me just hang on. Let's move my, I've got a monitor screen so I can see things. Okay, so move up a little bit here. Downloadable notes, you got that. Scientific calculator, you know what a scientific calculator is, okay? You know, one with an EE button or an EXP button essentially. Yeah? And if it's got the SCI button, that's a bonus extra, right? Because it allows you just with the push of a button to convert between regular numbers and scientific notation, which is useful sometimes. Exponent, of course, is for powers of 10 notation. Chemistry is, by its nature, the science of very big and very small numbers, so we need to express those easily. Okay, you probably remember that from 101. Prereqs, obviously Chemistry 101 with a C or better, and, you know, Math 138. Okay, so, you know, you do in 102, we do this thing they call integration, okay? So you need to know how to integrate. You won't be doing it like, you know, routinely, it's just a couple of proofs, but you have to know what's happening in the proof, so some degree of calculus is needed, all right? Instructor-initiated drop doesn't really apply to an online course, neither do ads, okay? If anybody wants to add if people drop up until the end of the first week, I'll let them, of course, but you know, we're full, right? I think class is full, so okay. All right. So background content. It's kind of interesting because in Chemistry 101 we learned the basics. We learned how to balance equations, grams to moles, things like that. Those are everyday tools in chemistry, okay? And then we build on those and we look at, you know, I'm going to paraphrase here, but we look at simple questions like, will the reaction go, yes or no? That's basically thermodynamics. How fast will it go if it works? And that's kinetics, okay? And then how much will I get, which is equilibria. Okay, so those are the three major topics in Chemistry 102, thermodynamics, kinetics, and equilibria. Okay, and around that there's a few other minor topics which we'll look at as well, but those are the main ones. Yes or no, how fast, how much, essentially. Okay, and what I like to do, if you've taken my Chemistry 102 before, I like to wrap this all up in a kind of an somewhat interesting way with stories and anecdotes and things from everyday life. So I try and make the subject come alive as much as possible with kind of real world stuff. Okay, so keep an eye out for that. My idea is not to make it like a dry reading of the book, which is the worst way to teach chemistry. Okay, so those are our chapters. Okay, now I did put in a little asterisk, if you like, here. I know some of you are possibly still a little weak on the 101 stuff. So, as well as the first lecture, which will be, you know, probably below this in your Canvas list, right? Okay. Aside from the next lecture, I'm also going to talk about some very basic review stuff for Chemistry 101. Okay, and at that time, I'll give you a link to the Chemistry 101 note packet and also the Chemistry 101 video. So if there's any particular part of Chemistry 101 you need help with, then for sure look at my Chemistry 101 notes and videos, all right? And also if you come to the office hour at 9, right, that's when the 101 students will be there. You can actually ask 101 questions at that time, okay? All right, so you know, it's a lesser number of topics, but solutions is just basically different ways of expressing concentration strength, which we'll get into, okay? Then we have our kinetics, how fast, our equilibrium, how much. Acids and bases are aspects of equilibrium, more equilibrium, and then thermodynamics, which is these two, yes or no, essentially, whether a reaction goes. And then a couple of add-on classes on the end. These are kind of a short module, electrochemistry, how a battery works, for example. And then, you know, nuclear decay processes, which is kind of fun. All right. Now, important, all right. How does this all work? Well, what you'll do when you look at your note packets, all right, maybe I'll see if I can just find one real quick in the Chemistry 101 book. Excuse me fumbling around here. Okay. So, you know, in Chemistry 101, this is one of our topics, periodic properties of the elements, okay? Now, at the header for each topic, there's some reading assignments and some homework assignments, okay? All right, now, how this works is what I call the cyclic learning method, all right? So, what you do, okay, if you want to be successful in chemistry, and this is over many, many years of teaching this, all right? First thing you do is the reading assignment as mentioned, okay? So you know, for example, next week we're doing whatever topic it is, you print the notes out, right? So print the notes first, makes sense, right? And then do the reading that's in the header box, right? That sets you up for success, right? So we're going to learn chemistry together, but you're going to have a better kind of head start on that if you've actually done a bit of background reading. You cannot learn chemistry by reading the textbook. If you could, I wouldn't have a job, right? Okay, so make sure you do the reading. It's going to set you up for success in the actual learning phase, which is next, okay? So then we do the appropriate packet or packets, right? So, you know, back to our example, if you notice there's lots of gaps, right? Okay, that's for you to fill stuff in, okay? So I do my lecture on the video, you guys listen to me, and then kind of process that information and write it down, okay? Occasionally I'll pause, and you would pause the video at that point and then answer questions to test your knowledge. So it's all about participating, okay? You have to watch the videos and you have to fill out the sheets as you watch the video. That's as close as I can get to the classroom experience. In fact, in some ways, it's a little better than the classroom because you can't say, hey, pause in the classroom, okay? But you can just pause me on a computer, no problem, okay? All right, so work through the packets. That's where the learning happens, okay? So it's a bit like if you're like on a building site, it's like you're pouring the cement in, right? Okay, and cement's knowledge in my kind of analogy, right? And then what happens? Well, this is the danger because, you know, sometimes I'm teaching a class and I hear students leave the room, oh, well, that was great, I understood that. And that's danger because unless you let that knowledge harden, that cement has to set. How do you do it? Homework, okay? Now, I don't collect or grade homework, but it's the most important thing to do. Okay, I do put homework questions essentially right on the test. So I do homework and you'll see the question again, but it is a way of setting that knowledge, okay? Very, very important, all right? Now, and then once you've done that, you go around again and you may be saying to yourself, well, if he doesn't conduct homework, I'm not going to do it. Well, you're not going to pass, all right? Let me talk about how memory works, okay? So we have, well, let me ask you a question. No one can answer this question. Ready? What did you have for dinner? Pick a number. 7 days ago. 1 week ago, what did you have for dinner? No one's answering the question, right? That's because short-term memory fades very quickly. So here's, you know, knowledge, your knowledge, and this is time, right? You learn something and your memory of that fades very quickly. Okay, so short-term memory fades quickly. And if you want to remember something, you got to put it in a long-term memory. Right, that's repetition, things like that. Now, in the science, you don't really remember facts, right? You just learn the method to solve new problems every time. No two chemistry problems are the same. However, the methodology is the same. So what you do, as soon as you leave that room, your thing must be, right, I'm going to practice some questions as quick as possible, because what happens is, you know, even if it's the next day, you bring it back up to where you were, this is the homework, and then because you've used that knowledge, it decays away slower. If you just keep reviewing it, it never eventually goes away, right? So you learn the knowledge, you use the knowledge, and then you kind of come back and keep looking at it, okay? Keep solving problems with that, and it will never go away. I think it was Einstein that said, you know, I can show, you know, I can tell you 10 times, or you can do it once. That's what Einstein said eventually, right? Meaning that, hey, if you just work this knowledge, it'll stick, okay? So homework is super important. As you can see, it has the chapters and the number of the questions. They're all odd numbers because the answers are in the back of the book, right? And it doesn't matter what version of the book you get because they don't change the questions too much, okay? In fact, for some of you, if you've got the newer book, these are wrong, right? Because they're from a previous version. But just find the chapter and you can literally answer any question you want. You can look online and get questions, right? As long as you're answering general chemistry questions from the topic we're studying and you have access to answers, that's good. Okay, it doesn't matter where you practice. It doesn't have to be from Tro, okay? Doesn't, okay? In fact, I would recommend practicing out of the ACS book more than Tro because that's the style and type of question you'll get on your final and in the future. Okay. Now, back to it. So, talked about reading and background, homework, etc. there, okay? Now, lab. Yeah, lab, right? So a couple of students have asked, you know, are we doing online or in-person labs? We're doing online, all right? So, aside from the first one, which is just something I made up for lab safety, which is just, you know, return the completed sheet to me, okay? The rest of them will be through Pivot, okay? So you look on your first day of class chores, so to speak, and I just today actually put up the Pivot codes, okay? So make sure you're able to log on to the Pivot site, and that's where you'll do all your work, okay? So it's kind of a virtual lab, okay? All right, so Pivot, PI, Pivot Interactive, okay? So I'll put up the Pivot assignment on the Monday, and it'll be due on the Friday, so you got a whole week to do it. But again, remember, try and get it done before Thursday because of office hours, all right? So make sure you log on. If you look on the Canvas, there's a GRP 101, which is the lab site, okay? So that's where you'll go, and then you'll click on the experiment, and it will take you, I think, to the Pivot site from there. And then when you get to the Pivot site, you use the code provided to kind of enter the Pivot site, so to speak. Pivot's a third-party vendor, right? Okay. And then, you know, once you've done the Pivot, you know, we're doing 100% pivot this year, so I'm not sure how those are actually returned to me. We'll find that out when we do the first one. But I think, you know, either you're going to send me a PDF or I'll just download it from the pivot site. Either one doesn't matter, but you'll go to pivot to complete your assignment. Okay. Now, important, okay, 1 lab per week, okay, 100 points per lab. All right, so that's like 1,600 points more or less altogether. But that's not how many you get, right? So I normalize that to a score out of 150. And here's the good part, okay? Whoever gets the top score gets the whole 150, and everybody's graded against them. So you're not battling against some theoretical maximum. You're actually battling against the highest score in the room, right? So that actually helps, okay? So everybody usually gets between 150 and 120 for a lab. Labs always help as long as you keep handing them in. They're curved, right? So keep handing labs in every week and you'll be fine. I did have to fail a couple of people last semester because they just didn't hand any labs in, okay? And one of the things is it's a lab course, so you got to get more than half, right? You got to get more than, you got to get 75% or better to pass a chemistry course, right? So just make sure you hand them in, okay? As long as you hand them in, honestly, it doesn't really matter how great they are, okay? As long as you hand them in, you'll pass the lab phase, okay? Because of the way it's graded. All right. Important lab notes. Okay, remember, if it's late, you know, standard for my work is 10% per day. Okay, so don't be late. All right. Obviously, you're not going to wear the goggles. You know, in the regular semester we do all that stuff, but you know, the medical stuff isn't really an issue. Okay. Obviously, it's online. All right, so it's 10% off per day. If it's more than 1 week late, it's 0, okay? So 10% per day, if you're like, you know, 6 days late, it's 60% off. 7th day, 0, all right? Because you can't delay, you got to get them back to me, okay? You have a week to do them, plenty of time, and you're going to get behind if you just delay the labs. So 10% per day for late labs, a week later, nothing, okay? If you miss more than 3, I take a letter grade off. Right, you got to do the labs, okay? And then again, if you get under 75 out of 150%, you fail, right? Okay. Now, last couple of things real quick, all right? I think I'm going to have to, I have an overhead camera, right? So, hi. So I talk to essentially a GoPro here, right? And then I have a camera that looks, and I sync the two together, right? Long story short, the overhead camera has a 29-minute recording time limit, okay? So I'm going to have to pause in a moment and restart. So, you know, get used to that when we do longer videos. But anyway, so I'm going to say start, stop in a moment. Don't get freaked out by it. In fact, I'll do it right now, okay? So I'm going to stop for a moment, I'll come right back. See you in a second. All right, so I'm back. All right, so we got to the point where I was about to talk about exams and grading, okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to have 3 quizzes, 1 preliminary quiz, which I'll talk about in a second, 2 midterms, and an ACS final, okay? So the preliminary quiz. Preliminary quiz is just for you guys who haven't taken my class before, how to get used to my style, right? Okay, so I'll send you out a PDF and a document that's the same test, right? You then complete that at home and either send back a doc or a PDF to me for grading, okay? And that's all in that read this first and first day of class post, okay? So make sure you read those, all right? Okay, so I'll send via email, you return via email, preliminary quiz, midterms, regular quizzes, and a final. The final actually you'll take online, but you know, I don't administer the final. So for me, the first thing you'll get from me is a preliminary quiz in a week or 2, okay? And then it'll be regular quiz, midterm, regular quiz, midterm, regular quiz, final. And the dates of all those are at the, you know, the master schedule announcement. So check the master schedule. All right. Now, 150 for lab, okay, so lab and final are both worth 150, the midterms are both also worth 150, okay, so all the big things are worth 150, quiz is 25, and the preliminary dip your toe in the pool quiz, only 15, okay, that all adds up to 690, okay, so 690 points is the maximum available points for the class, right? And then the question is, well, How do you grade that, right? Okay, now there are two ways of grading, aren't there? Maybe you're familiar. So you've probably seen the criterion-based assessment most frequently. Criterion-based assessment is, hey, 90 or better is an A, 80 or better is a B, etc. Fine, right? Fine. For classes that are quote-unquote easier, sociology. Everyone gets an A because everyone gets 95, right? Because it's easy material, right? But if you've ever taken a 200 level physics course, the class average may be 68. Everyone fails, right? No, they don't, because in physics, what do? For the more challenging classes, they curve, okay? Chemistry kind of sits a little bit between the two, probably more towards physics. So I like to do a curve, but with a twist, okay? So I kind of take the best out of the normal distribution, the curve, and the criterion distribution to grade your work, okay? So let me show you how that works, all right? Now the numbers are here, right? But I'll just talk generally, right? So generally speaking, okay, if you have more than about 12 students, which we have, and you look at their scores for the course, so that's your score. Oh, sorry, that's the score. That's the number of students. It follows a statistical normal distribution, doesn't it, usually, all right? And that symmetric center, statistically, is the average, okay? Fair enough, right? So that's your score, that's 690, right? That's 0, all right? And that's the number of students with that score. Okay, now here's the thing. In my class, what I do is I set the average to literally a C+, which means literally a point before B, right? So if you're above average in my class, you're getting a B or an A. Now, it's usually about, you know, you look at the numbers, but there's slightly less A's than B's, right? Because of the way the curve is, all right? So again, take home message, if you're above average, you're getting a B or an A in my class. It doesn't matter what that average is. It could be 68, it won't be. That's physics, right? Normally the average is 70 something, all right? Okay. And then, hey, if you're a point below average, you're in the C range, okay? Unfortunately, if I follow this curve distribution to its kind of extreme, people will get D's, won't they? People will get D's. And, you know, I don't like the idea of inevitable D's, yeah, because, you know, some couple of students in the class, doesn't matter what the average is, what their score is, they'll get a D if it's curved. This is where I come in, right? So this is where I say, hey, the CD line, which I like to think of the pass line, I'm setting that to 50%, okay? So there you are, right? So there you have two pieces of information that's important, right? The class is graded on the curve, okay? Class is graded on the curve with the approximate percentages of each grade being in the syllabus here, okay? All right. But no one gets a D if they're over 50%, okay? So the line in the sand for passing is 50%. How do you know how you're doing? Just look on Canvas. Canvas is awesome because it gives you a running total of your grade, right? Okay, so it gives you how many points you've earned out of how many you've been awarded so far. And if that number is 50 or better, you're passing. So first question is 50 or better. And then, well, what grade am I getting? Well, after every quiz and test, I put the whole list of scores up on Canvas with the breaks, okay? So, you know, maybe 120 or better on a midterm was an A or something, right? So then you'll see, just by looking at that distribution, how you're doing, all right? And if you want to know how you're doing for the course overall, just average your midterms because they're such a big chunk, all right? So, you know, if you got a B on one and A on the other, you're an A-B student, right? Okay. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, this is up in discussion, right? I always post things in multiple places. If you've got any questions in the discussion or in the water cooler chat. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. I always get at the end of the semester, oh, Dr. Mills, I'm at 89. Can I get an extra % for an A? And you've already got an A because I draw the line at 84 for the curve, right? Or whatever the number is, okay? So don't think it's a criterion-based assessment. It's not, okay? It's not the score you get. It's how many people you're ahead of, if that makes sense. All right. Okay. Moving on. So 50% of that number is 345 in terms of points. All right. So have a look at that in a little bit more detail. All right. Now I mentioned it already. Get the ACS book. It's super important. Okay, I mentioned it there. Extra credit. Now I love extra credit. Okay, I like extra credit because it's kind of motivational. I like to motivate students. All right. Okay, so I do all these things in the regular semester to have students earn extra credit. But in in the online environment, I've done it slightly differently, okay? So basically in every video, I think it's literally every video, I will award extra credit. Okay, but extra credit is only awarded if you watch the video and send me the assignment back before the deadline for watching the video. So the deadline for the video is always on the Friday, right? So as long as I get your extra credit, it tells me, one, you've watched the video, and two, you've done the extra credit. Obviously, you understand the concept, right? So extra credit is, you know, open for the whole week. So if you watch that video on Tuesday, as long as you get the extra credit to me before 11:59 on Friday night, it will be graded, okay? I do not accept extra credit after the deadline, all right? So it's the week deadline, all right? It's the same deadline you've got actually on Canvas or, you know, that module or whatever it is. Okay, so extra credit for that. Also, if you, one of these is true here. So if you find an error in any of the online materials and you let me know, post it at the water cooler or the discussion area, give you a point, okay? So I think it's very important that errors don't go into people's notes. So if I say something silly in the video which I didn't catch, you tell me and I'll give you a point. Okay, I want any errors corrected. All right. Now, my favorite thing in the world, apart from watching Premier League soccer, that's a joke, right? Okay. One of my favorite things is research. I'm actually the undergraduate research coordinator, so I kind of put together the whole science department's kind of research effort, and we have 4, sometimes 5 instructors who do independent undergraduate research, okay? Now, I'm going to put a link to the undergraduate research video I made right below here, okay? So take a look at it, but very simply, undergraduate research is super important if you're trying to get into a competitive field, okay? Because if you think about it, you're applying to med school, farm school, dentistry, wherever it is, right? Everybody's got the perfect resume. They've all got the 4.0 and the this, that, and the other. And what separates you from the crowd? What separates you from the crowd is undergraduate research, right? Because it's a hard thing to do. And I'm fortunate because I work with the government, right? I work with the USGS, United States Geological Survey, on the Asian carp problem, which is big in Illinois, and we actually get funding for that. So it's a well-funded research program. And, you know, this semester it takes place on Friday, 12 noon till 3, okay, every Friday in the semester. So if you're interested in my project particularly is neuroscience, right? It's related to neuroscience. So if you're interested in padding your resume a little bit, getting a publication or a presentation at a conference, you know, drop me a line, right? And we'll talk. I have 2 places open as I speak, maximum of 4 students. One of the students is actually in the class already, who I know, and I had another student from the outside come in. But I do prefer to recruit from Chemistry 102 students because I know you've got through the grinder. I shouldn't say grinder. You got through the through Chemistry 101, right? So you know your basics, all right? It's a lot of applied, simple Chemistry 101 stuff. All right, so if you're interested in research, take a look at that video. All right, now how it all works, we'll talk more about this at the end, but I'm really into regular face-to-face active learning, right? So we kind of solve problems together as a team rather than the more traditional talk and chalk thing, right? So I tried to carry that over to the videos, right? So when you watch the videos, pretend you're actually in the class, right? And then when I pause and say, hey, try a question, try the question, okay? You can't just passively watch the videos. Passive learning just doesn't work, okay? You've got to be active. You've got to absorb the material, kind of think about it, and then solve a problem to test understanding, okay? That's the only way, really, to learn chemistry. All right. Now, that was all on these next couple of pages. I'll let you kind of read through. That's kind of philosophy. I actually did a master's degree in education back in England back in the day. I'm originally from England, right? And my master's thesis was all about like learning how to learn. So, you know, one of my things. All right, missed work, talked about it already. Okay, if it's a lab, it's 10% per day. All right, however, if it's a quiz or exam, you have until that hard deadline to send it to me. Okay, if I don't get it in the window, I grade it right away and put up an answer key, right? So then the answers go up on the internet and you can just look at them, right? So it has to come in on time, okay? And my advice is, you know, be diligent, right? Make sure you understand when the tests are and when the deadlines are. Because once I post that key, there's no way I can let you take the test because the answers are out, okay? So This again doesn't really apply, apart from the 10% per day for labs. So make sure you do the online tests and submit them back to me on time. And another thing I'll mention, it sometimes happens, it's rare, but it occasionally happens. Students will think they've sent it back to me, but they didn't press the send button. So get into the habit of just double checking your outbox. This is what I do with important emails all the time. I email someone from the USGS and I just check my outbox and know I sent it, okay? Because the last thing you want is to spend a couple of hours on a piece of work, think you press send when it's sitting in your drafts. And you know, that's a tough one, all right? So make sure you check your sent. Okay. Academic dishonesty now, I did talk about this a little bit. Okay, I do know if you Google stuff. I do know if you go and check. I do know. All right, I make separate tests every time. I make up my own tests, all right? So they're not out there. You can't look it up, okay? And if you have someone solve it for you and then it's a unique test that belongs to me, I know. All right. Okay. So don't think you can Google stuff. Don't think you can have someone else do it for you. All right. I'll know. All right. And as I mentioned last time, I mean, this message was not conveyed properly last time. I actually had to I had an issue with 50% of the class failing. Okay. It's not like you can sit there and just Google the answers. You cannot. Don't try it. Okay. All right. Finally, well, talked about it already. Well, there's no real lateness, okay? No real lateness in an online environment apart from the deadline. So just make sure you meet the deadlines. All right, so nearly there. All right, nearly there. Back to the top, back to our checklist. Quick recap for you before I sign off here. So how does the class work? Check Canvas every day. Check the announcements area, the discussion, and modules, okay? You have usually a week to watch and complete the video assignments for lecture and lab, okay? If that week happens to be a quiz or a midterm, I give you literally 48 hours to do it, okay? And it's got to be back on time, all right? Now, when you return work to me, quizzes and exams, it's going to be in the form of a PDF or a doc, which I'll previously sent you, which you hopefully are able to print and fill out and scan and send back. Or there are other ways around it, which I talk about elsewhere. You can, if you're really good with the math editor, you can actually write in there, I fully expect true subscripts, true superscripts, and all that. It'll be explained in the first assignment, okay? It has to look right. It has to be correct format, all right? So you can recommend it, print it, write by hand, scan it, and send it back. That's by far the best way to do it. Or, if you're good with Word, just edit the Word document I send you, send it back. Oh, last resort, right? You can work out answers on a scratch paper, take a picture, and cut it and paste it into the space in the Word document. You can do that, okay? But it takes a lot of time, it's a lot of effort. It's much simpler to do one of the other two things. To be honest, as long as I get a test or a quiz back with the answers in the space they were supposed to be written, either handwritten and scanned or typed or just cut and paste, right? It doesn't matter, okay? As long as it looks like, if you like, a proper quiz or test, okay? What I will not accept is just a straight up picture of a notebook. No, it has to be looking like a proper test, okay? So, you know, don't take any shortcuts on that, make sure it looks right, all right? So, again, check Canvas every day. Understand how work is given out and taken in, all right? Make sure you log on to the GRP 101 lab site, or 102 actually in your case, and you know, join Pivot, all right? And I think aside from that, you know, just keep up. I mean, people who get behind fail, right? So try and kind of discipline yourself to doing the work on the Monday or the Tuesday. All right, and then if you have some issues, and homework on maybe Wednesday, and then if you've got issues, office hour Thursday, and I can fix it, right? So when people, human nature, it's last minute, right? Oh, I got until Friday to do this, and then you know, take a look at it on Friday, and it like, makes no sense, yeah? And then you're done, because you can't go back in time, because I already talked about it in the office hour the day before. So, you know, don't get behind the 8 ball there, and, you know, make sure you look at it in the early part of the week, if that makes sense. All right. So any questions? discussion below, water cooler chat. Hopefully that all makes sense. And I'll see you guys on the next one.